Do you like history? Do you like it when other people are wrong and you're right? Do you listen to epic rap battles of history? No? Well, that's gonna make this video difficult. Oh well. So, if you didn't watch last week's video, I kind of tore into Edison versus Tesla a lot because of historical inaccuracy, and that got me thinking. What other historical inaccuracies does ERB have to answer to? To that end, I went through all 86 entries in the series, noting down all 83 factual inaccuracies mentioned, portrayed, or alluded to in the series. To avoid copyright, I'm just going to open directly on a still from the battle in question and introduce the inaccuracy with a palatal click. Also, yes, we're just going to jump right into it. It's not a premise that requires much Epic rap battles of history! The first two battles, John Lennon versus Bill O'Reilly and Darth Vader versus Adolf Hitler, have no inaccuracies. I wouldn't put this to their credit, though, since it's mostly because they don't have any historical references and are just mindless insults being hurled around. 65 years in the past is only accurate to the year 2010. Nowadays, the figure would be 78, and it will only become increasingly out of date. Lincoln was a politician. He lied. In the future, I'm just going to skip over the battles with no inaccuracies from this point onward. They're mostly battles about fictional characters that don't have obscure details to misremember. Bach died 20 years before Beethoven was born. Also, I have a bone to pick with this line. Why does Bach know how big your penis is? Did he see it? Why did you show it to him? Is he gay? There are a lot of theories on the cause of Beethoven's deafness, likely a combination of lead poisoning and a degenerative bone disease. In Germany, they actually do hit little girls. If you were to list how many atoms the universe has, you would need almost 3 times as many millions. And each of those atoms are made up of multiple particles, to say nothing of particles that aren't in any atoms. Okay, this one's kind of obvious. Obviously, Genghis Khan couldn't have put his DNA in dudes in New York. Oh, he's talking about like his descendant. Yeah, that makes more sense. Never mind. This one's fine. This one's fine. Hey, I'm actually average height for the time. There's evidence that the kite and key anecdote is nothing more than just an anecdote. This one, on the other hand, is almost certainly a myth. I don't know if best-selling is meant to be an objective statement or a metric by any means, but The Cat in the Hat Comes Back isn't a bestseller by most metrics, and it's almost 6,000 times less popular than the original. Mr. Rogers had 2 children. Technically, it is possible that he did all that without seeing it, but honestly, that's kind of even more impressive. Columbus went on a return voyage to America 3 times and arrived. Even discounting that, he went on many journeys to Britain, West Africa, and across the Mediterranean before his most famous voyage. People have been attempting powered flight since 1849. The Wright brothers were just the first to make a successful powered, controllable flight, which, yeah, is a lot more impressive. One of these has to be wrong, but we're not sure which. The daughter in question, Lisa Marie Presley, has flip-flopped on the issue. The anecdote of Cleopatra committing suicide using a live snake is debatably accurate, but the detail of her being bitten on the breast can be traced back to Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. Bill Gates was 27 when Apple entered the Fortune 500, so do with that what you will. In the future, I'm just going to skip all the political predictions because it's not worth it. You know who the president was. Bruce Lee did take an aspirin, but that wasn't what killed him. It was a mild tranquilizer he took along with the aspirin that resulted in the fatal allergic reaction. In the Torah, Moses and the people he was leading didn't wander for 40 years because they were lost. They were being punished for their unwillingness to attack the Canaanites the first time they came to the Jordan River. And therefore, Moses and the oldest generations were destined to die off before they actually entered the Promised Land. Gandhi's first name is Mohandas, and Mahatma is a title which roughly translates to great soul, which means something like holy man or sage. I think this is far enough away from the Jewish concept of a messiah to constitute an inaccuracy. Ooh, the H in Gandhi isn't silent. It's part of a digraph that makes a breathy voice D sound that doesn't occur in English and is generally approximated as, "What do you mean this isn't a language video? I'll talk about whatever I want to on my channel, thank you very much." Well, I'll admit it. So far, I'm impressed. Each battle has only had an average inaccuracy count of less than one miss per battle, so as long as the next battle isn't not only riddled with inaccuracies but predicated on a false narrative, then we. Oh. Well, brace yourself. Tesla and Edison were never really nemesis per se. The only time they came into conflict, the War of Currents, was really more between George Westinghouse and Thomas Edison. Edison didn't steal inventions, he owned an inventing company, and people who worked for him sold the patents to him. That's how the business model works. He didn't steal credit, he bought it. Would you say that if I bought a loaf of bread from you, I was stealing it because the bread is still fundamentally your intellectual property? No, he didn't! No, he didn't! I have a whole video on this. For the last time! Actually, I guess this time Tesla specifically states that Edison didn't steal from him, which is accurate, but Edison didn't really steal Tesla from mankind. They didn't really interact with each other much beyond their initial disagreement, and you could make the argument that Tesla wasn't even stolen from mankind, and if he was, it certainly wasn't Edison. Just watch my other video, okay? Edison didn't stop Tesla from making power free. Tesla just had a crazy idea, he couldn't make it work, and no one was willing to give him the funding on the off chance that it would work. Another possible interpretation of this line in the previous is that it wasn't specifically Edison screwing over Tesla, it was just the greedy corporatism that Edison embodied. But the myth of Edison versus Tesla individually is too prominent for me to make that good faith assumption. Can we just move on to a different battle? Babe Ruth was technically an orphan eventually, but his mother died when he was 12 and his father lived long into his adulthood. Mozart did have an unusually close relationship with his cousin, but I couldn't find any evidence of a sexual relationship. I'm not discounting the possibility, though. I don't know why he said that, it's kind of a silly claim. Rasputin's 13-inch penis was famously severed and is currently preserved in a museum in St. Petersburg. While I give you a moment to recover from that sentence, let's pick apart Stalin's wording here. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that he's not complimenting Rasputin on the size of his member, but rather he's accusing the eminent phallus of being from moose, not monk. Autopsy reports do confirm that Rasputin was never robbed of his right hand man, and the nice Peter in question probably belonged to a cow or horse. Probably not a moose, though. This one isn't historical per se, but as a New England resident, I am obliged to point out that white chowder absolutely beats out red chowder. Left hand. Stalin's left hand was the messed up one. That should be pronounced SSSR. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I thought it was CCCP. Crazy. The Queen Anne's Revenge was claimed to have 40 cannons, but only 30 have been confirmed. I'm only including this one because I think you guys might say it's inaccurate, but I don't think it is. Joan of Arc was captured by the English and then turned over to the bishopric of France, who were, at the time, unloyal to King Charles. The umbrella of those you defended is, I think, big enough to include those that betrayed her. However, based on my research, I'm not convinced Joan of Arc was a cross-dressing peasant. I think he might have just been legitimately transgender. Poe wasn't an alcoholic. He was a binge drinker who spent inordinate amounts of money on beer at parts of his life, certainly, but the notion that his life was a constant story of drunkenness is a complete fabrication. Poe wasn't addicted to opium. He used opium as a plot device in a lot of his stories, mostly to emphasize the unreliableness of his narrators. There's only one account of him trying opium, and that was a suicide attempt, and that story is sometimes thought of as something he made up just to emphasize how edgy he was. I don't know. Poe dropped out of college, not grade school. Technically, the line isn't wrong, but I think Poe got unfairly snubbed in this battle, so I'm clarifying. Discovered? Gravity? How do you discover gravity? Isn't that like saying you discovered the color blue? You can't claim that, maybe calculated or defined gravity, but no, you can't say that you discovered gravity. This is a reference to a calculus equation Isaac Newton set up, but the way that it's presented in the rap battle here, it has 64 different solutions, because that's how many 64th roots the number 1 has. Washington's teeth were made out of a variety of materials, including slave teeth, horse teeth, and metal alloys, not wood though. The Battle of Trenton was won mostly by Washington occupying the high ground surrounding the city and having his artillery positioned against a tired and unprepared army before they could form ranks and ready their weapons. It was a brilliant tactical victory, but he didn't slit anyone's throats while they were sleeping. That would be ridiculous. Hey, callback. No, that's still just a legend. So I was originally going to make this one video, but it got too long, so I decided to blah blah blah. You get the picture. Today's video was sponsored by your dad's pre-cum.